as I walked away, I heard one of them say to the other one, "He didn't even sound like Lionel." I thought, if he only knew, he'd be crapping his pants right now.
Welcome, friends and fans, to another edition of GalaxyCon Live, where we are bringing the convention experience directly to you. And today, we are going back to Third Earth by way of the Limbo Galaxy with the cast of Thundercats and SilverHawks. So without further ado, let us have sight beyond sight and bring them out. Our first guest is a musician and composer known to the fans of the New Jersey Devils and the Brooklyn Nets as the in-house musician. Today he joins us to discuss his work as sound engineer for Rankin Bass and the role of Copper Kid. Please welcome Pete Cannarozzi.
Hello, Patty. Hi. Thanks, everyone, for having me.
Oh, it's absolutely our pleasure. Pete, how are you?
I'm fantastic and so glad to be here. This is my first GalaxyCon, and I was really excited about coming in. Thank you.
I am so glad to have you here. I see you have a keyboard in front of you. Is that hooked up? Are we going to have a little accompaniment during?
I was hoping to, but it actually is part of the sound that I used to create the voice of Copper Kid in SilverHawks. So whenever it's time, I was going to give a demonstration of that. But other than that, no, it's just a trigger mechanism at this time.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. And you've got a gold record behind you. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I was a studio musician in Manhattan, New York City for many years, and I got to work with a lot of great artists. And that is Stephanie Mills back there, and the gold record was for her song Two Hearts. And that was one of my 2 gold records that I received as a musician for playing on the record.
Absolutely. Well, Absolutely. I can't wait to hear more about how you persuade from, because I know your classic training was in musicianship. Then you got into the sound engineering at Rankin Bass, and then we'll get into a little more about how the Copper Kid evolved for you.
There's a little bit of misinformation there. I know I got credited for sound effects on the Thundercats rollout, but the sound effects I created was not as a sound engineer, but as a musician. So I had a bunch of keyboards in my rack and a bunch of outboard equipment and created all the sound. So if Bernie Hoffer, the composer, said, "Can you give me this sound?" I would create it with a keyboard or a sequence or some kind of wild effect. I was credited for those sound effects, which I created as a musician. So I'm not really a sound engineer, but I sort of am.
You did to a layman like me. You did time inside the studio, so that kind of puts you in that orbit. Very much. But thank you so much, and I know a lot of my friends and a lot of my sports friends are very envious that you're joining us for this event in your other capacity. So
I'm the organist for the New Jersey Devils at the Prudential Center. Been there. This will be my 21st season, and it's a dream job. I get to watch hockey and play music.
Play on, brother. Play on. Well, Pete, once again, thank you so much for joining us. This is a pleasure.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks, Patty.
Indeed. And next, she is an actress whose credits include My Little Pony, Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, and Chicago Med. Today, she joins us to discuss the roles of Cheetara and Wile E. Kit. Please welcome the lovely Lynne Lipton.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, Lynne, how are you?
I'm good. In this pandemic, I'm really good.
Good is the new awesome in these interesting times that we're in right now.
I think about 10 pounds fatter and just hoping everybody's okay,
Well, I'm sure we are. We're so glad to find you in good spirit and good health. And thank you for joining us here on our stage.
Oh, thank you. I've never done this before, so this is very cool.
Oh, well, again, thank you for joining us. Let's bring out our final guest and we'll get rolling. He is an actor whose credits include Archer, Extreme Makeover, and Celebrity Deathmatch. Today joins us to discuss the role of Quicksilver, Tygra, Wile E. Cat, and Bengali. Please welcome Peter Newman. And he's not our last one. We have one more. Peter, how are you?
Hello. Hey, I'm good. And Lenny, this is my first time too.
Oh my God, please be kind.
Never done a virtual panel before. Who knew? Great. Nice to be here. And thank you for reminding me of Celebrity Deathmatch, Patty. Not something that occurs to me every day that I did. I think I did the voice of Dean Martin for it, if I remember correctly.
And a few others, as I recall. I was composing your dossier. But main thing is we're here to talk about the animated stuff. And I see you got the characters represented behind you there, including the rare Bengali figure.
Bengali, which there is. There's Bengali and there's Monkeyan, because I felt like they don't get enough play. Tygra is the main. So I thought I'd bring him out of mothballs and let him say hello to the crowd.
Absolutely. And of course, Super 7 toy maker just got the license to do new SilverHawks figures. So those are on the horizon as well. I'm very excited for that.
That's amazing that the SilverHawks is kind of having a renaissance, as I understand it. I guess I'm the Lion-O of the SilverHawks or something like that, as Lieutenant Quicksilver.
Pretty much. You're the central on that. Flipped it over. But speaking of Lion-O, let's bring him out. He is an actor and radio personality whose body of work includes I'm Is in the Morning, Red Dead Online, and of course the voice of Count Chocula. Today joins us to discuss the roles of Bluegrass on SilverHawks and Lion-O, of course, on the Thundercats. Please welcome back Larry Kenney.
Hey guys. Hi, everybody. How are you?
Hi,
Larry.
Good. Larry, how have you been?
I'm fantastic. It's so great to see everybody again. Of course, we haven't seen each other for certainly not last year, in the last year, and it's been a long time. So, Lynn and Peter, it's great to be with you again.
Same here.
Yeah. And Pete, Pete and I never met, I don't believe. Did we, Pete?
No, actually, we never met, although, we have a common ground with Bernie Hoffer, but we have never really met. So it's really great to meet you. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll say, well, Larry, so glad to have you back. Hope everything is well in your corner of the world.
Things are going along just swimmingly, as they say. Yes, things are good.
How delightful. So, well, honored guests, thank you for joining us here on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. It's an absolute pleasure to have you all here. Our team is going through the chat room right now, pulling out the questions for you. In the meantime, I'd just like to open this up with and just ask you, how did Thundercats begin for each of you that were on Thundercats? And then we'll ask about Silverhawks. So how did this all begin at the Rankin Bass offices?
Wow. Ladies first. Lynne, go for it.
Yeah, it was Lee Doniger, our producer director, and I got called in for an audition, and I was doing, I did a number of Broadway shows, and I said I'd never done anything like this before, and she said, well, try it, and I did, and it was just, the best job I ever had, because it wasn't work. I mean, just silly all the time, and there was Bob McFadden, and
Earl Hammond
and
Earl Hyman.
And Earl Hyman, who, these great, wonderful people who really taught me how to do it. I mean, they were the great Mel Blancs of New York City. It was just great.
Was it always? Was it always sort of baked in the cake that you were going to be doing multiple characters, or was it just, okay, we want you to read for this, and then, okay, we'll have you do the other one while we got you?
Well, no, we had auditions in the studio. Every time, there was a new character, they would put up a picture of the new character, and all of us would audition for that character, and the guys, because I was the only woman, the guys would say, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And that's how the character became, because the guys would put their input in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. Peter, how did Thundercats begin for you?
That's the wonderful thing about it. It was just another day on the job, and it was an audition, like so many other auditions. It was different because it was a cartoon, but I didn't know what ultimately the opportunity was. And so we went up to the Rankin Bass offices, little office with Jules Bass, I guess, was there, and Lee, if I remember correctly. And they just had ideas. I don't remember offhand if there was even any artwork for the initial audition. They said, well, we're looking for a young superhero type, or a little older superhero type. Or what about, what kind of bad guy can you do? Or, that kind of thing, really kind of freewheeling. And so I just I threw everything at them that I could think of, because it was so open-ended. And then when, I guess a few days later, my agent called and said, hey, that audition you did for the cartoon thing, you got the job. Oh, great. No clue of what it would turn into. And then they said, this is going to be good, because this is a series. And they're going to do a bunch of episodes. And this was early enough in my career that it was a game changer for me. And as Lynn has said, to work with the experienced professionals there. Just it was not only great fun, but just watching was a lesson in how things kind of worked and how far. Yeah, and that you couldn't go too far. So and then it turned into something like 2.5 years of work.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
Did you want to? Is this just Thundercats, or you want to look at talk about SilverHawks as well? Or you want to
Let's ask about Thundercats with Larry, then we'll talk about.
Sure.
When, hey guys, it's so good, we'll do another one. Yeah. So Larry, how did Lion-O begin for you?
You know, listening to Peter and Lynn, I don't recall going to the Rankin Bass offices to audition. It seems to me it was at a regular recording studio. I may be wrong. What's that, Lynn?
No, it wasn't a studio because we had the same agent. And
we all three of us, right? We all. Peter, you were with. Yeah. Okay. My memory is. I'm much older than you guys, so I don't remember quite that well.
At least 3 months, I think, right?
But I just remember I remember going in and they told us briefly, what individually, we weren't all there in the studio together at that time, of course. They gave us a general idea what the show was about, naturally, and what each character was about, and his eccentricities and all that sort of thing. And then they asked me, as I recall, which they wanted me to audition for one Thundercat and one mutant, one of Mumrad's guys. So I said, well, Lion-O looks to me like he's the leader of the group. Why not try for him? So I did.
We'll make the big money.
And then I Jackal Man came along for me because I saw the drawing of it, and as soon as I started thinking about a jackal, what is a jackal? When I think of a jackal, although I've never met one, I think of him as wily and sneaky, kind of nasty and snide and all that. That put in my mind Snidely Whiplash, who was a character on Rocky and Bullwinkle. He was the ultimate villain, if you guys remember Rocky and Bullwinkle. He was always trying to catch Nell. I'm going to get you, my pretty. Like that. Well, that sounded more like
the voice for the great Hans Conried.
The Wicked Witch. But anyway, so I thought, okay, I'll combine the two and came up with Jackal Man's being, we must get the Thundercats, yes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I got very lucky, and they called back and called my agent and said, we're going to use them for both of them. Yeah. I was very happy about that. Now, somebody mentioned for SilverHawks, I don't think we had to audition for SilverHawks. That'd be because we had just done 130 episodes of Thundercats, and they knew us pretty well.
Right.
Yeah.
We came back in, but we did audition. I'm sorry, we did audition for the characters like we did for the Thundercats in studio.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they knew they were going to use us. They knew we were the people they were going to use.
Yeah.
In fact, guys, remind me, I believe we started recording SilverHawks before we finished recording the last few Thundercats.
I think you're right. I was thinking about that the other day, and that's what occurred to me as well. I think we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there was no gap between them.
Right.
So I think we just kind of eased right into SilverHawks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting that they just had broad concepts when they brought for some of you in up front, because this was a big departure from the usual Rankin Bass stuff. I mean, they had, they had done the holiday specials, of course, the Puppetmation and everything else, but the daily syndicated superhero stuff was brand new to them. And, but I love the fact that they brought the same kind of imagination they had in their Tolkien adaptations to this series. It was the great characters and the great mythology they had built up around it. I was sold the first scene with Mumbra. We said, this is Third Earth, when it was once First Earth. Just that alone just hooked me as a kid. Like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but they have a plan. Even if they didn't have a plan, that convinced me they had a plan, and I was sold from there on. And again, I thank you all for the performances. Really, you guys had a lot of primary characters as well as the background characters, and I thank you all for your talents that you brought to the table in this series. And I speak for the fans out there of Thundercats. Thank you all. And now we move on to SilverHawks. And Pete, when did you get involved? Where were you? Were you in the studio then at that point doing music?
Yes, as you all know, our great friend and great composer of all the music for Thundercats and Silverhawks was Bernie Hoffer. So I was a studio musician in New York. There was maybe a handful of us, like maybe 200 guys doing all the work, the jingles, the records, the films, all the stuff that, you know, you hear on the radio and you watch in the theaters. And I was doing the jingle, and Bernie not only was a great composer, but he was a jingle writer too. He would arrange the jingle, he would hire singers. And I ran into Bernie on a recording session for a jingle. And that was right during the time when Thunderhawks, did I say Thunderhawks? Thundercats and Silverhawks was going. So him and Lee Daniker, they hired me to come over to MZH and play on all the orchestral pieces as a keyboard player. But also we had a separate session to make all the sound effects for every episode, and we banked them. Bernie would say, okay, give me this sound. And I did that. Give me this sound. I would do that. We would do this all with a keyboard and a bunch of outboard gear. And I would be working and programming and playing the sound and tweaking the dials and all that. And he would say, stop. Don't improve it. Because he liked it right at that point, you know, because, you know, you want to get the sound the best that you can get. But he would stop and say, don't improve it. Larry would hit the record button and we would record it and move on to the next sound.
Outstanding.
Larry Crenshaw, I think, right?
Larry Frank.
Larry Frank, of course. Yes.
Larry Frank and Mike Farrell were the two engineers, right?
Yes, right.
Nice, indeed. And just either from Silverhawks or Thundercats, what's the best memory you've all taken from being a part of this whole experience?
The camaraderie, the wonderful people, and also when Bernie was talking about the sound effects, we used to do that. We used to do that in the studio. That was my favorite part. And Lee would, you know, I think Earl Hammond and Bob McFadden, they could do things like wind. You know, they could do things that you can't imagine, like water flowing. And I mean, it was great for me being the only woman in with all these guys. They treated me very badly.
Yes.
No.
No. I mean, no. Well, we did that. We saved doing the vocal sound effects to the end of the session.
Yeah.
So that we wouldn't ruin our voices, you know, for the dialogue. And when Earl Hammond would do his mum-ra, and he would wind up to it. It's like we would just stand there and watch him waiting for something to explode. It was so great. So
my favorite memory of Earl doing Mum-Ra is, those of you who watch the show know that Mum-Ra, the character, when he was transforming into Mum-Ra, the ever living, he would start getting this drool coming out of his mouth. You remember? Earl actually did that. Remember, guys? People start going, ancient spirits of evil. And the drool would start coming in, but he would keep going. He would go, transform this decayed form into Mum-Ra.
Yes, I remember that exactly. He would wipe his mouth as he was doing it.
Well, I started... I think you guys did too. I would look a couple of pages ahead, and when I saw that Earl was going to be doing that in a page or two, I would start moving over a little bit further away from him. End up in the corner. I almost brought. Thinking about bringing. Remember Gallagher the comedian? People would go to his performances and bring plastic sheets, or they would actually give them to you. They would cover the front 30 rows of the of seats with these plastic things because he was
Sledge-o-matic.
I thought about bringing a big piece of plastic and holding up in front of me. Earl was great. And Bob McFadden, if I may ramble on for 1 second.
Please.
Lynn talked about both Earl and Bob and the incredible sound effects they could make. Bob McFadden, if you guys remember, actually showed us how he used to do the sound of a bunch of hounds running after, you know, the box or whatever.
Baying hounds.
And he would do it. I can't even begin to, but it would go, and it would sound like maybe 4 or 5 dogs.
Yeah.
And then he'd say,
wow.
He'd say, how about 10 dogs? And then he would do it again, and it sounded like 10 dogs. It was incredible.
Wow. I don't know if you guys remember, Bob told a story about how in a recording session, he was asked to do that for a commercial, some sort of radio commercial, the dogs, right? And afterwards, he explained to the producer when he went to sign the contract, is, oh, you know, the vocal sound effect, there's another session fee for the vocal sound effect. And the producer was really, you know, kind of, oh, really? I have to pay you extra for that? And Bob said he told him, he said, you're lucky. Normally I charge by the dog. That was Bob.
Oh gosh, you know, speaking of making sound effects with your voice, that voice of Copper Kid. Now I'm not as talented as all of you. I'm just a musician. I can't do the voices like you guys
Just
do.
a musician, you hear?
But we did the voice of Copper Kid using an instrument called a vocoder. I'm going to show it to you right here.
Oh,
That's a vocoder, and what you need for a vocoder is a voice and a microphone and a keyboard. So I'm going to turn the vocoder around and show you how we did it.
Paul, can we blow him up?
Hi, I'm Copper Kid. How are you, Peter?
And then
How
I
you
turn the
doing,
button off, and I turn the button off. So, you know, it's all you have to do is just sort of perform it with your voice, and then you could change the tone of it with the keyboard. Here, I'll play a different note.
Hello, I'm Copper Kid. Hello, I'm Copper Kid. How are you, Lynn?
So that's how we did it. And I guess Lee Danica would give me the script. I would read all the lines, and then they flew them all into all the episodes.
Wow.
Wow. That's right. Like I said earlier, when we were just chatting before amongst ourselves, that Pete and I never met, I don't believe, Pete. Even though we were
No,
in,
we haven't.
how many, 65 episodes or whatever it was?
65
of the show.
episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you and I talked to each other on, I mean, your character and my character, Bluegrass. We talked
Right.
to each other. Ever at the end of
Exactly.
every show, it was Bluegrass giving the kid, the Copper Kid,
Right.
life advice, you know.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he would say something like, now watch this, kid. Watch this, kid. You're going to find out how this really works. Something like that, you know. And then you would go, that's right.
That is
Thank you,
fantastic.
Larry.
I just want to inject for a moment here. I watched a SilverHawks episode as we were talking before we all got together here just a short time ago, because I couldn't remember. I was asked about a certain voice. I think it was Time Stopper. And I couldn't remember if I'd done it or not. And so I went online and watched the episode. And as I was watching, I still couldn't remember if I had done it or not. But I knew it was either me or Larry, just from the sound. And at the end of the episode, there it was, the lesson. There was some science about the universe and the planets and what have you, with Larry teaching, you know, Copper Kid, and now you're talking about it, Larry, exactly. And it was, I wouldn't have remembered that if I hadn't seen that episode. You know, things just don't stick always forever.
Right.
So it was great to see. And it turned out, Larry, you did the Time Stopper, by the way.
The most wonderful thing about
I wouldn't have remembered. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's that, Lynn?
we were in the studio all the time, so we had no idea it was popular when it started to get popular. And I used to go up to Harlem and with a script and some of these homeless shelters and stuff, and the kids, and they would, I made Xerox copies of parts, and they would play the part, and it was overwhelmingly, how can I say, satisfying to see that these kids, they knew all the characters, and you know, one brought a sword, the Sword of Omen. I mean, it wasn't a sword; it was just a piece of plastic, and it was just so wonderful to hear them be Lionel, and they were so. How can I say? They were so overwhelmed when I said, "Well, I did all the female characters in the beginning, and you know, for the first year, and so they would. I say, show me your stuff, you know, and they would make better characters than any of us ever did. You know,
Good thing we didn't have to compete against them.
Yeah, right. But you know, the popularity of it, because we were just in the studio, it was a job. We do it, and you know, we never knew how the outside world was actually receiving it. So it was really a pleasure.
Well, Lynn, that's an absolute
Right.
credit that you did that for those children. That's really
Yes,
touching.
it is.
Oh,
That's Lynn
yeah.
for you.
Right.
Lynn's got the biggest heart in the business. She's
Yeah, and I hate her for it. I totally resent it.
Yeah, I love to tell the story about how I first realized that Thundercats was as big as it was, because as Lynn was saying, you start doing it, it's on the air, and you don't know what the ratings are yet. You don't know, like you said, you don't know who's watching it and how big it's going to be. And I got my first glimpse of it when about 2 weeks before Christmas of one year, and I was Christmas shopping at Toys R Us, rest in peace. Mm-hmm. And the last time I had been there with my daughter, there was maybe a half an aisle of Thundercats stuff, and the other side was He-Man or something like that. Shows that had been on longer, This time when I walked in, there were 3 aisles of Thundercats things. I just went, oh my God, the show is huge. And as I walked by the action figures, there were 2 little guys there, probably 7 to 10 years old. And I could hear them, they were talking about, one of them said, I'm going to be Tygra because he's the best one. And the other kid said something like, oh, no, I'm going to get Panthro. I'm going to play like I'm Panthro. Well, I couldn't help myself. I walked over and I said, say, why don't you get Lion-O? He's the one that says Thundercats. Oh, these 2 kids looked at me like I was, somebody to stay away from. And as I walked away, run away. As I walked away, I heard one of them say to the other one, he didn't even sound like a Lion-O. I thought, if he only knew, he'd be crapping his pants right now.
Yeah.
I left.
Now, if you have a sec, the other side of that coin is, after the property changed hands, Rankin Bass closed and went to Lorimar and whoever and disappeared, went into the wasteland of wherever. These characters that I've got behind me here, I bought some years later, just on a whim. I think this one, Monkey Inn, I think I found at KB Toys, which also no longer exists. Right. And this one I found in Chinatown in New York on sale, on the sale rack. And I just said, oh, God, I gotta rescue them.
So that because
the thing about, we've all been in, as it was, show business for, we're actors. So you never realize any effect you have, especially a stage actor or on television or stuff. But Thundercats, to see these kids, to know that it had such a profound effect on their joy, their pleasure, their imagination. That was, so it was, aside from getting paid for having fun, it was just one of the most fulfilling jobs you could have. Because you never think you have an effect on anybody, really.
Well, you certainly all had an effect, and we have the fan questions ready to roll to prove it. So let's go ahead and roll our first one. And this is going to come from Lynn, and they want to know, if you could hang out with any of the character you voiced or scored, who would you pick?
Pick me, Lenny. Pick me.
Copper Kid.
Okay, Copper Kid.
Copper Kid. So
you can see we're all actors. Nobody wants to let go of the limelight.
So we could just all say Copper Kid then?
Yeah, let's go with that.
There you go, Lynn. Thank you very much for that. Hey, Copper Kid, can you give Lynn a shout out and say thank you?
Hello, thank you very much.
There you go, Lynn. Figure that works it. All right, what do we have next? And here's one from Kirsty. Ooh, do you have a favorite episode of Thundercats, and I'll add on, or Silverhawks?
Oh, wow. I just One that
Common question.
I'm sorry, Larry. One that comes to
Yeah,
mind
sure.
for me was when Monkeyan had his day. There was one episode where Monkeyan was the quote, the star of the episode. And of course, he got in trouble and crashed and burned. But for whatever time it was, Monkeyan was out front. And I think I just got a kick out of him having his day in the sun.
Yeah.
Fair,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
I think for me, the people, it's a very common question, right, guys? Whenever you meet people and they ask you about, they usually ask you, what was your favorite episode? And of course, they remember. Some of them remember every minute of every episode, all 130, of course, and we're standing there going, "Which episode was it? I don't know." But one of the first few episodes for me were my favorite, I think, because that's when I got to play Lionel as a 7-year-old boy. I think he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And he never really did get older than that, mentally, but his body grew anyway. Because it was so fun to try to make him, Lionel is basically my own voice, just as Tygra is just really Peter's voice. All the Thundercats, they didn't want cartoony voices, right, guys?
Yeah.
They wanted them to sound like they're half human,
Sure.
So but it was fun to try to bring my own voice down to what might sound like a 7-year-old, because I didn't have this keyboard like Pete has, None of us did. So it's just kind of fun to go, gosh, Snarf, I don't know if I'm fit for this job. I don't know if I can be Lord of the Thundercats. And then the music swells and all that. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude. Go ahead, Lynn.
Did
Lynn,
say-
Lynn, you got an episode that comes to mind?
I think, at the end, I wanted everybody to have a memory. So I brought in, in the late 80s, your video camera was about 20 pounds. But I made a video for the guys, and it was just to have that memory, and especially, I must say, Earl Hammond. I mean, Earl Hammond used to scare the shit out of me. Excuse me.
Can you say that on the internet?
I mean, he was just
I
amazing.
think all your original fans are okay for that English now.
but just to have that piece of history for all the guys, and they were my pals, and they actually taught me how to do it, because I had really I'd done voices on various cartoon shows, but not a whole series where you actually create a character like Cheetara or something. I wish I could run as fast as Cheetara. I wish I had thunder thighs. I mean,
I still see Cheetara cosplayed today, and they just keep getting better and better, costume wise.
Wow.
She remains a very popular and inspiring figure among female fandom.
Sure. Wow. It's just amazing, and playing the background like Mandora. I remember exactly. There was this Mandora, and the guys I'd say, well, what kind of voice? And I think it was Larry who said, because he knew I did a bad impression of John Wayne. And he said, "Would you do a little John Wayne?" So she kind of had this voice, and it was.
My God, that's perfect.
Yeah, of course.
Let me sneak in there one more time. I'm sorry to talk over you guys, but Lynn mentioned the video that she made, and I am just so thankful that you did that. I still have my copy of it. And you gave us each a copy of it. It was about 10, 12 minutes long, I think. And some wonderful stuff on it. And somehow the rumor got on the internet that copy, that video exists. I think maybe you did post just a snippet of it one time.
Oh, I never did. It was ours.
And I've also heard through the grapevine that you were offered a pretty good sum of money to sell that.
Warner's
and refused to do it.
But that was ours. It was our little thank you.
As a fan, I would be remiss if I didn't say would love to see it, but I absolutely respect the fact that it is a moment of your time in history together, and that it is your memory to share among yourselves. And if you want to share it with the world, that choice is up to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Peter, is there a favorite episode of SilverHawks or even Thundercats maybe that resonates with you?
Well, I had mentioned Monkey before, but there was also a one episode character that I did, as we all did. We all auditioned for the guest bad guy or character for any given episode, and I had the bad fortune to get the one called the Demolisher, and what it demolished most was my voice.
Yeah.
Because in this crowd, in order to get the job, you got to come up with something. And so and by the end of the episode, I think I was whispering, kind of like that. But that was the Demolisher. So
I would do it. And Pete, any favorite episodes with the Copper Kid that you can recall?
I think it's the first time that I actually heard myself on television as Copper Kid. That's like, that's, it's like, wow. I mean, here, this is like Lynn said, it's our job. We go to work, but it's such an honor, to be part of this group. And then you hear yourself on TV and it's like, wow, that would be the favorite episode for me.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely. Christy, thank you so much. Wonderful question. And what do we have next? And it's from Alex, who wants to know, what was your dream job when you were growing up? Ooh.
Well, I'll take it.
I wanted to
go ahead.
Go ahead, Larry.
Thanks, Pete. I wanted to be a sports reporter, a newspaper sports writer, and I did that for a year when I was sophomore in high school, I think, for the local newspaper in my hometown. And I really loved it. I got to take a camera and take all the pictures of high school basketball games, things like that, football games. And then I would go back to after the game, go back to the newspaper office and bang out my story and submit it, and any film that I had taken. Then it would be in the paper the next day. And I really thought for some time that that's what I was going to do until I turned 15 and I got an offer to do a radio show in the local radio station. And the first minute I sat down in front of the microphone, I knew that's what I wanted to be. So I've been living my dream job since I was 15 years old.
Nice indeed. Way to go.
My dream job, I wanted to be the ping pong champion of the world. That was actually what I thought I would be. And I was devastated not to become it, I must say. Ping pong was my life. I love beating guys, the boys, it was sort of like, you beat a guy, you're great, So, and when I became an actress, it was sort of, oh, I'm not a ping pong player anymore, I'm so sorry.
Pete, how about you?
I'm still doing the job now. This is what I wanted to do. When I was 13 years old, my dad, who was my motivator and my teacher, and he got me somehow on a show in Chicago on NBC called It's Academic. It was like a game show for high school kids, and they would answer really hard questions, and they would have talent in the intermission. And he got me, I don't know how he did it, he got me the job playing the organ on this show, and I played a song, and it was in the studio with, all the monitors and the microphones and the lights and the set and everything. I said, wow, that would be a really cool job to be a musician in a studio. And, I'm still doing it. So really, I feel very fortunate for my parents.
Nice. And Peter, bring us home.
Well, I always had something of a performing bug in me. In high school for a year and a half, a couple of friends and I formed a little folk singing trio when folk music was hot in the 60s, in the early 60s. But my high school yearbook said I was going to be a genetic researcher. And then as soon as I got to college and had to take advanced math and all that evaporated really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I tried different things, including working in an office for 5 years until I realized that was never going to work. And so I didn't end up understanding the reality of just the voiceover business, because people who knew me said, you know, those silly voices you've been doing all your life, there's actually a business that does that. I didn't do my first professional audition for a commercial until I was 30. And I actually got the job, and I always describe it as the gods of commercials, you know, fishing and setting the hook, because I thought, this is going to be easy. And then, of course, I had to actually learn the trade. But then it was too late. As soon as I got into the studio, as soon as I met, as a matter of fact, Bob McFadden was one of the first people I met doing this. And my eyes, I know if my eyes got wide and lit up when I heard him do an accent, and then I did it back at him, and he kind of looked at me and said, cut that out. So, and it was just, that's when I realized that's really what I should be doing.
Wow.
Oh, very
You were an
nice.
accountant, weren't you, Peter, for a while? You were an accountant for a while. Weren't you?
And actually a commercial bookkeeper, residual bookkeeper it was called. Yeah, back in the 70s, mid 70s. I learned that just to help out. That's how I first met Bob, and how I got to understand that it was a business. But it took a couple of years, and people encouraging me there at the agency where I was working, for me to put together a demo reel, which at the time was a reel-to-reel tape. A lot of people wouldn't remember that, but that's what it was at the time, and get sent out for the first audition. So yeah, quite a process.
Indeed.
And as actors in New York, I mean, I started out just as a serious actress and was a stage actress, but to make a living as an actor, I mean, when you fell into the luck of doing voice work, it was like you could make a living, and then you could do any little play for no money in a closet. You know, I mean, it afforded you a life in the theater, you know, because actors really cannot make a living off Broadway, and those were the plays I loved to do. So it was really extraordinary. It was like, I guess I'm going to swear again. It was like falling into shit, you know.
Oh, Alex, thank you so much. Great question. I think we have time for one more, so let's see if we can go out on a really fun one. And this is going to come from Aaron, who wants to know, do you have any favorite memories from the recording booth you could share with us?
Oh.
Well, I told you the one about Earl when he would do the Mumra thing. And I remember Bob McFadden, whom we keep coming back to because he is such a funny guy. In fact, I watched Bob McFadden on the Ed Sullivan Show when I was a kid. I remember he walked in the room. I said, "Didn't I see you on Ed Sullivan once?" He said, "Yes." But Bob had this thing. He would do these little kind of, how do I explain it? Little smart ass comments, half under his breath, you know, like if we had done a take of a scene, and we all thought it was, you look at each other and you'd go, "Yeah, that was good," you know. But Lee or one of the other directors would say, "Can we do another one?" Bob would go like and say, "Would you gild Olympus?"
You remind me, Larry. He would either that, or he would go the other way and do like a Paul Lynde. If anybody remembers Paul Lynde under his breath, and he'd say, "Mother, they hated me."
Mother, they hated me. That's right.
Mother, they hated me.
Yeah.
I just remember it was just such it wasn't work. It didn't feel like work. I was surrounded by these guys who I learned from, like Bob McFadden and Earl Hammond and you guys. But it was like, I'm getting paid for this. You know, I mean, there was so much pleasure and laughter and messing up. And Lee Doniger, who we became very good friends, she was just such a pleasure to work for because she was so easy, and she, though she was a taskmaster, she just loved us. You know, she would be in the booth with us, you know, with the headphones, and you know, it was the best job I ever had. It wasn't like a job, I felt, you know.
If I could just add just a part of what would happen at times, each of us in various episodes would have to do several voices within the same episode.
Yeah.
And since we recorded the dialogue live, real time, you would end up talking to yourself as different characters.
Yes.
That would happen to each of us. And so one of the great things, one of the fun things would happen is you'd end up using the wrong voice for the wrong character, because in the heat of the moment and in the drama of you'd do the wrong voice for the character, and everything would stop. We'd all have a good laugh, and you know, try to get back to business, such as it was, business. Yeah.
That's Peter. That's Wile E. Cat's line, not the other one.
Yeah, that's right. Why are you always blaming me? I'm doing everything right.
Oh, Pete, got a favorite memory from the booth? Or
Sure. I mean, when Lynn was talking, she reminded me, you know, I got to work just with Bernie Hoffer and Lee Daniker to create all the sound effects, because everyone had all gone home. You know, it was just the three of us there, and you know, we would be creating and spontaneously creating on just like that. And Bernie would say, don't improve it. That was his favorite thing. Don't improve it. And then everybody would say, okay, that's great. Let's order sushi. You know, that was you know, was really some great memories. Thank you for asking.
Oh,
We never had sushi.
You didn't? Oh, you should have come over.
That's right. Aaron, thank you so much. Wonderful question. And gentlemen and lady, this has been an absolute delight. Any final words for our audience before we go?
Yes, I have a
Thank
final
you,
word.
everybody. Thanks
Thank you.
everybody for watching the show, and if it weren't
Thanks
for you
for
guys
making
watching
this,
it, we wouldn't be here now.
Thanks for making this necessary. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
That's absolutely. Pete, did you get your finger on the button? Were you gonna say something?
I was going to say, if there's ever a crossover event, you know, like SilverHawks and Thundercats, if Copper Kid was going to sing the theme to Thundercats, it'll sound like this. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Thundercats are on the move. Thundercats.
That's my
Yes.
crossover idea.
Well, you heard it here first, fans out there. Start those hashtags, SilverHawks, Thundercats crossover. Let's see if we can make that happen. In the meantime, this has been my absolute pleasure to serve you all today on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Once again, thank you all for joining us here today. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and thank you for all your great questions. We'll hope to see you all again soon. Until then, bye-bye, everyone. Take care, and remember,
Bye.
the smiles are free. Spend them often.